Well, thank you very much, Haley, and thanks everyone for joining us today. For us, this is very important. I'm here in Caracas, Venezuela, and I want you to know that speaking as a Venezuelan, we are very concerned of what is going on. At the same time, we know that a lot of the pressure that the U.S. is placing on us at this moment is also part of a side ops operation, where they're trying to make the Venezuelan people panic. But besides that, they're trying to make the Venezuelan military break and turn against the revolutionary government, something which has not been successful now and which has not been successful in the past. I think one of the things that has consolidated in Venezuela is precisely the civic military unity and the notion that regardless whatever differences we may have internally as Venezuelans, this is something that we have to solve internally, but not something that we need an international intervention and even less a U.S. intervention. We know the history of over 200 years of aggression and tension in this region because of U.S. interventionism. So it's one thing that we completely reject, and I know I speak for most of the Venezuelans, with a great majority of Venezuelans, even those who do not see eye to eye with us in developing and deepening the socialist project. What I wanted to share with you today is that when we an effort we should do an effort to understand the context of this in a broader sense. Uh, we know that Venezuela has been under hostility for the last 26 years, ever since we decided to create a revolutionary project that was going to take its own route and break from the dependence of Washington, for instance, from dependence not only economically, but also politically. And that has been, of course, a source of trouble for the US, for antagonism, but also because we sit on the largest oil reserve, the largest proven oil reserves in the world. We sit also with vast majority of resources that are coveted by imperialism. And at this point in time, we see that the United States has realized that the hegemony it had over the past few years after the end of the Cold War, precisely the hegemony it had over resources, control, the hegemony it had over technological development, even the hegemony it had over the financial architecture are now being questioned. And there is a serious change in the world. We see, if not, if we cannot say maybe that the multipolar world has arrived, or the pluripolar world, like President Chavez used to say, if we can't say it has arrived, we are seeing the beginnings, and we are at a point where we know that process is irreversible, and the United States knows this as well. So, in this context, it has realized that it's not making progress in its aggression and in its tensions with Russia or its tensions with China. It has now embarked, especially since this new Trump administration, it has now embarked on a sort of restoration of American dominance, of U.S. dominance over the American continent. And this is something that we have to be aware about. I know, of course, Venezuela is a primary target in this. But if you look at all the actions that have taken place in the last several weeks or even months, you started with an attack on Canada, saying that Canada should become the 51st state, an attack on Greenland's independence. You started with they started with this interventionism, this direct interventionism that we can see in a place like Argentina, where President Trump openly says, "This is my candidate, and if you don't vote for this person, you are going to lose the aid that we're giving you." Or the fact that President Petro from Colombia was kicked out of the United States during the UN General Assembly. And now, because he stood up against this terrible aggression in the Caribbean, then he is now declared a terrorist as well and sanctioned as well. And you see the attempts to sanctioning President Lula in Brazil, or actually taking measures against Brazil, tariffs and sanctions against the judges because they had hurt Bolsonaro, who was Trump's main ally in the country. Now, as he realizes that Bolsonaro is not, is going to go to prison, and doesn't serve him anymore as an ally. Now he's trying to come and find some deal and make some deal with President Lula. They just met a few hours ago. So you see what Trump is trying to do. I could go on with many more examples, but I want you to see that the context of the aggression against Venezuela is a context of restoration of U.S. dominance over the whole region. And the fact that the narrative has changed on Venezuela in the last few months. There's no longer, when you see the official narrative, there's no longer any concern about democracy or human rights. That became a forgotten side issue. Now it's all about drugs because he has to sell this intervention to his base because there might be, we know there might be an escalation into a military intervention, something that most of his base has some way or another criticized or been against. This idea of endless wars, the one bring the troops away from endless wars, stop wasting U.S. resources on endless wars. Well, now the only way you can justify the same imperialist type of aggression that has always been done under the Monroe Doctrine is by saying you're not fighting a government, you're fighting a criminal organization, you're fighting drugs. And when you fight drugs, then just as somehow is supposed to be some like an internal law enforcement agenda and not a regime change operation or not an imperialist agenda. We cannot be fooled by this. We have to understand that this is again the imperialist tactic. Venezuela is it's again the one country in the region besides Cuba and Nicaragua who have put a strong have made a strong stand against U.S. policy, which has not allowed pressure to cut away its ties to other countries around the world, which are ties that help and strengthen Venezuelan interests and Venezuelan relations, like China, like Russia, like Iran, and many others. Venezuela is not going to change its project. Venezuela is not going to change its model and give in to U.S. imperialism, and that's why it has to deploy all these actions. I think, friends, that it is important that we consider that also the extreme violation of international law, of human rights that is being taken place with these attacks and operations in the Caribbean. This is done without any form of consideration for laws, not only international laws, but also not U.S. laws. These have been executions of people in the Caribbean Sea. There have been no explanation, no proofs given. And even if there were proofs given, there's no operation, no drug operation around the world involves the murdering or the killing of people without at least some sort of trial or some sort of legal process. So this is something that when we come out and we denounce this, and we've taken this to a different international forum, but in particular to the United Nations, we say this because it's not only going to be an aggression on Venezuela, we're already seeing that it's an aggression on the people of the Caribbean. And the consequences of this escalating into another conflict are going to be consequences that are very unpredictable and dire for the rest of the region. I mean, if the U.S. is concerned about immigration, like it says, is its main concern of this administration. Well, imagine what immigration is going to look like in the region if there is an open conflict, if this escalates into something different. If the United States thinks that or believes that stability is of any importance, imagine how the economies, how everything is going to be destabilized because of a military intervention. So in at any other moment in time, we may think that this is bluff. Um, but we also know the history of the United States, and we also know the history of interventionism, and we know that right now it's acting as a desperate hegemon that is losing its power. So we have to, we have to be aware of this, and we have to raise consciousness, especially within the United States. I think there's still a lot that can be done. There's been a lot of voices in the United States that have questioned these military attacks. There have been a lot of voices that have questioned this whole narrative of the Venezuelan government being criminalized, like gangs or drug trafficking. There's questions of within Congress and other places, and I think there must be a joint effort, not only with the people within the United States that are anti-imperialist, but with people in all around the world that that want to defend peace and want to protect the world from another type of imperialist aggression in our region. My friends, I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for always being in solidarity with Venezuela, because I know you do a lot of work for Venezuelan solidarity. I've seen many of you do this, and we can only be grateful and proud of the work you do. And I just want to let you know, everyone here in Venezuela is ready to defend the country against aggression. We do not want war. We have never sought it, and we know this is a terrible thing. We don't even want to think about this. But you must understand, we are a nation that we are proud, and that we want to defend our freedom. We want to defend our independence, and we want to defend our right to make our own decisions. We're not going to be intimidated by the terrorism that is going on by the U.S. administration in the Caribbean. And you can always count with the Bolivarian Revolution to be in solidarity with all the all the good causes of humanity around the world. Thanks very much.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.